As you may or may not know, there's been a lot of big controversy in the VTuber space. Thankfully, we had Reb, Strawb, and Kirsche take it on.
It's been a little bit since you've been on, and there's been a lot of insanity that's happened since the last time you guys have been on. And we're going to keep this fairly high level, but let's kind of backtrack Rev and Strawb and talk about the last week for you guys, right? The last week has been... Well, I'll let you guys lead this. I want you guys to talk about what happened this past week and talk about as much as you want or as little as you want. But I mostly want to talk about the response to it.
You want to go ahead?
I'll let Rev.
Okay, I'll go. All right. So for those who are not familiar, we worked with a company called Advanced. They make like energy drinks and supplements and stuff. We've been working with them for like 5 years. Probably our closest partner. We've done dozens of drops. Like we have something like, I don't know, a few dozen like unique products from them, and like everything has gone great. They've had our back in past situations where people were trying to cancel us. And then there was a very inflammatory tweet, a series of tweets. And by series, I mean 2 tweets that I made involving topic of ice. And people got really upset in the VTubing scene. They're like super, super, super left leaning. And when they can't beat your ideas, they start tagging your sponsors, and they tagged Advanced. And it was like, we've been canceled for a lot of things. This was the most milquetoast, lame thing I've ever done at this point. It wasn't worthy of any attention whatsoever. But for some reason, people, the algorithm, I don't know, anything to do with the situation just blew up. Like people with like 2 followers would tweet about it and get thousands of likes. And it just got to the point where they eventually let us go after like 6 days of deliberating.
It's a lot of deliberation. We've seen kind of a soft canceling, if you will, where the mob gets a hold of things, and then you lose some sort of livelihood. Now, obviously, Kirsche, you've had this happen to you as well.
Yeah, and I mean, their situation made absolutely no sense to me. And it's like, I mean, every time I talked about it, no offense, Rev, I didn't agree with the point that you made, but it's like, Lala tweeted, "Fuck ice," Rev responded. It was all public. She locked her comments after like 14 minutes and then responded to him with like a Bible quote. And then he responded with a Bible quote. I have no idea how this blew up into anything. And it's like, whenever the left is losing a power grasp on something, they end up thrashing around. And so I was hoping this was like a death throw kind of thing. But then we saw like all of the dogging that Jelly got just for being like, "Hey, I don't want politics in my games." And it's just like, what is happening here? How are anybody like bending the knee to these mob people at this point? Cancel culture was supposed to be on a downturn. Mm-hmm.
I think that's been, we saw this actually yesterday. We talked about Dean Cain, obviously former Superman. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet of him. He got soft canceled or uninvited to going to a convention because of his quote unquote beliefs, right? And it seems like over the last few years we've had multiple trends with beliefs. Whether you can kind of go down by year. It's first in 2020 it was like BLM, then it was like trans stuff, and like now we're at ICE, right? To where ICE is the sacred cow, if you will, when it comes to things that you're just not allowed to touch. And if you touch it in the wrong way, then guess what? Out the door, right? It goes back to Rev. You pointed this out over on X. You said, "Why is one of the current faces of your company currently scrubbing her account of tweets harassing me and my wife?" But them talking about, you could actually look at this and say, "Well, this is fairly derogatory, and this can be seen as it's just."
I mean, this person was saying far worse than Rev had said to Lala. So like it seems like the Advanced GG people have definitely picked a side. And this is why, as a company, if something like this happens, if the mob comes for you, you shouldn't say anything publicly. Just stay quiet.
What do you go ahead, Rev?
I was just gonna say, we can't say too much, obviously, because
right.
There's certain things that are private, but you can just kind of look outside and say, okay, why did that person? Because they eventually referred to their sponsor or one of their partnerships, making them delete the tweets and clean things up. And it's obviously, I mean, based on context, I think we know who they're talking about. But they had the chance to remedy their stuff. People on the outside will look and say, well, why didn't Rev or Strawb get a chance to remedy anything? It just seems That's kind of the main issue here is that people are going to look at the standards they're setting for themselves and are going to say, are you going to apply that to other people?
Even though they say in their vague, like, because they made a couple of pretty vague posts about it publicly. And one of the main things they said was, like, we are enforcing things consistently. And that's, one of my biggest, I guess, like, things that made me the most sad about all this is it just didn't, in my personal opinion, it didn't feel consistent.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we've seen over the last 5-6 years is the idea of most people, they just want a bar, right? Here's your bar. And I remember saying this in 2020 when it came to COVID and such. Like, here's your bar, right? If you go past the bar, that's the issue. Or here's your line in the sand, whatever analogy you want to use. And it seems like that, it's the old goalpost things. The goalposts are constantly moving depending on how you think. And we've seen cancellations work both ways with companies. We've seen, people who lean right cancel Target or Bud Light, and then you see the other side. And I think it more or less speaks to kind of the ideology in these companies.
I would say there's a huge difference between a boycott campaign where you're like, I'm personally just not going to buy any of these products. And I will say to other people, if you believe the same thing I do, don't buy these products. And then directly going after a sponsor saying, drop this person, you need to drop this person is problematic, this person is not agreeable to your brand, right? Like, it's two completely different things. If people had been going around being like, I'm just not going to buy Advanced GG and you shouldn't buy it either, I think that'd be way different than them trying to get, like, Rev and Strawb removed.
Right. And that was Vescorbino. Thank you very much. I'll get you on the wall here in just a second. That was 50 for Foxwife right there. From Vescorbino. I definitely understand your sentiment there. And I think the thing that's interesting to me about this whole thing is the perception that people have of you because you don't align perfectly with how they think, right? This idea that if you don't fit in this perfect box, and by the way, this box is constantly moving in size, it's constantly moving with the things inside the box. If you don't constantly fit in that box, then you're out, right? And it sucks to see friends suffer just for simply having an opinion on something.
Well, this was
But
kind
the
of
thing
like...
too.
Sorry,
no, you're good. I was just gonna say, like, kind of going off what Craig said. It's hard too when you see so many people having a perception of you that's not even accurate to what you truly believe. Because I saw many people, privately, which obviously I can't speak to but I can speak to what I saw publicly. And I saw many things publicly as well on Twitter and everything talking about me and Rev. And obviously, we share a lot of opinions. We also have some of our own opinions. But regardless, I saw people saying things like, these people don't think I should exist. These people think we should die. These people like blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's just quite literally not true. And they're building a caricature of who they want us to be so they can take that down, because they can't, attack our actual positions, because our positions are like common sense positions that like most normal people have, or at least understand.
Yeah, that's the issue. The whole thing is perception. Like, we're not being judged based on what we actually say. It's the perception and the caricature that's been made of us. And also, like, one of the biggest comments I see, because a lot of people, including Kirsche, have talked about this in their streams or in videos. One of the like biggest comments I always see is people are like, what the hell did Strawb do?
Right.
I literally criticized ICE publicly on my Twitter account like a week ago. I criticized it wasn't just ICE. I just criticized police in general. And I did mention ICE specifically. And because, yeah, there are things that personally I don't 100% love. Maybe I'd like certain things to be better. Maybe I'd like certain things to be different. But it's like, that's not good enough for these people, because they take it and they say, well, you're a Nazi. You think I should die. You think that everyone should die. You think that I should be able to come in and hurt people. And it's like, where are you even getting this stuff from? Like, it makes no sense.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to people see, like, it's the word characterization, or the idea of a caricature, right? That is 100% accurate, where people just take these things and they it starts snowballing, right? And they have this perception of you. Then they start thinking you said this, or maybe this person did this. We're going to get into that briefly. Phoenix, I would love to hear your thoughts on just kind of this battle and this back and forth and the snowballing of a perception, because you have a personal experience where you were told, this person is that you're talking about your neighbors and how you actually went over there and saw them.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, you're referring to like the idea of not being able to break out of your own your little bubble, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So like that's one of the things I've always had a problem with on that side, is that typically they don't leave their little ecosphere, where when I was in that little cult, they kept saying all these horrible things. I mean, I was in the art industry, so my God, I was really in the bubble. And everywhere you went, you would hear it. And every single one of them was basically, without saying it, was like, don't question us. Just believe the narrative, and all of them are evil people. And I went like, well, that seems a little weird that 50% of the country is evil and wants to kill me. So I was like, I think I'm going to give an old knock on the neighbor's door and just say, hi, do you want to kill me? And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, sir, but please get off of my my doorstep.
But you're saying you actually did that, though. You actually got up.
Yes, not literally went to my neighbors, but yes, I started to go around on social media, and some old friends of mine that I hadn't talked to in a while that I knew were on the other side. And I started to just kind of go around saying, like, listen, here's the narrative that I'm being fed here. Can you share with me some of your perspectives, and also some of the influencers and news sources and things like that you're watching and follow? Because I want to hear your narrative too. And once I started doing that, man, it was really opening my eyes to a lot of stuff. And all it takes is just that going outside of your bubble for 5 minutes just to test it, just to test the waters to see, am I right on this? And very quickly you find out that, no, this is insane. This is ridiculous. So I'm so happy that I did that, because if you don't do that, then you're just stuck inside that echo chamber. It just goes round and round and round forever.
Like, I was going to say, I was kind of like the canary in the coal mine for this kind of thing, because I think as far back as I can remember, I was the first, like, openly, let's talk about not leftist politics in VTubing. And I've always kind of like read articles and stuff ever since I started streaming, but I got more and more outspoken about it because more and more the leftist politics were being pushed into video games, which is what I was streaming, which is what I like doing. It was my hobby. I had already seen hobbies that I didn't care so much about be completely co-opted, right? Like comics and whatnot, and just regular movies and other entertainment. And so ever since, 2014-ish, they had been trying to co-opt into video games. And we saw this more and more in the past few years. So I talked about things more, and I got attacked quite a lot for like, why are you bringing politics into VTubing? Politics doesn't belong here. It needs to be apolitical. We don't want any politics in VTubing. If you don't want any politics, you have to tolerate both. There's an unfortunate, just like, everything is to the leftist policies here. If you don't toe the line, you can be safe edgy. You can occasionally throw out little nuggets of edgy jokes to garner an audience that will be like, oh, they said something edgy. That means they must be based, right? You can kind of throw that out a little bit and still be allowed in VTubing spaces. You can be allowed in the cliques. You can be allowed in the cons. You can be allowed to spread and get an audience. I have been on the opposite side of that, where it's like every single obstacle has been put in my way to hinder me from any kind of growth, because I don't toe that line. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be outspoken about what I believe and what I see. And it's really unfortunate that if you want to play ball in any kind of creative industry, you kind of have to toe that line with the leftist politics. Sure, you could become something like a Hassan or a Vaush, but what's the point when all you have to do is silently restrict somebody else from voicing their opinions instead of outwardly voicing yours because they're the mainstream acceptable ones? And it's just very, very obnoxious and a kind of depressing that instead of like an apolitical where people can say their piece and be off in their own little corners and just continue to do whatever, that it's actively hindered instead if you just don't play that kind of game.
You know what's interesting is when you hear about some, like, this ICE conversation or whatever it may be. I remember and I'm going to bring this back to my personal experience with COVID, right? Where I would just want to know about something. And like, I'm just asking questions, right? And I just want to know. What's funny is I saw this and I did not know this was a thing, that when you just ask questions, that's actually seen as well, this is courtesy of Wikipedia. Have you guys seen this before? The just asking questions. I didn't know this was a thing. is a pseudo-skeptical tactic often used by conspiracy theorists to present false or distorted claims by framing them as questions. If criticized,
it makes sense, right? Because when you ask leftists to explain anything, they just get angry, they throw insults, they don't want to have an honest conversation. And whenever you ask questions, they assume you're acting just as disingenuously as they are. And again, back to the Amelia thing, in that propaganda game, if you choose to look for more information, if you choose to ask questions, that's considered bad. You're just supposed to accept the state-sponsored sloppa and ask no questions.
And they said thousands of people have been either sent to a counselor or law enforcement or something like that because of their wrong answers playing Pathways with Amelia.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
What?
Thousands of people have been flagged by that system.
So that system is like a honeypot system to where you
that's
go
what I
in
had
and
a
you
feeling.
play it.
Yeah.
And they will track you down. That even if it's just for the memes.
Can't track me down. I'm in America, Dad.
Like,
Well, it seems like it's directly with the system. So, like, if you're a student forced to play this Pathways game and you give the wrong answers, you could be getting a visit from a counselor or law enforcement.
The UK is fucking scary, dude.
It is very scary.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to know.
They're the
I'm
next
over there.
step of America.
Agreed. I've been saying that for ages. Like, the UK and Canada are where we're going to be headed if we don't actually start doing something and getting involved in like local politics. Doesn't have to be part of your content, doesn't have to be part of something you talk about online, but it's going to affect you. You should pay attention to it.
Wow, that is crazy. I had no idea that it was that bad. I mean, I figured that it was a situation like that, but I didn't know it was that.
We brought up that as a question. Yeah, we brought that up. We brought that up as a question when we were playing it. I think I may have even been the one that was like, "Hey, I bet you that they track you if you get the wrong answers."
Wow,
that's not shocking to me when you're dealing with a terrifying government like that.
That is shocking, like legitimately shocking to me. That's like, I was shocked by the game, but the fact that they actually are going through and like flagging people, man, that's upsetting.
And because this is the UK, I mean, that goes beyond just the game itself. If you're online posting memes about this and you get a little too silly, you could have a knock on your door from that as well. It's multi-layered.
There's no free speech.
The JonTron clip has been living freely in my head for months, and then they just started coming out and saying it on TV, you know?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's amazing to see how even language like simply asking questions has been co-opted by Wikipedia and seen as it's a conspiratorial thing. Just don't ask questions, just consume.
But that's
Anyone remember when they changed the Wikipedia page for cultural Marxism, that instead of cultural Marxism being the insidious ideology of transforming culture under communist and Marxist ideals, it was now a right-wing conspiracy theory? They changed that in like 2014, 2015.
So it's funny. I have my brother has personal experience with Wikipedia, where he was my brother's a musician. He's been a musician on Wikipedia since, I don't know, early 2010s or so. And he always had a nice Wikipedia article. And then once again, COVID happened and he started writing songs about COVID and government overreach. And all of a sudden, he was deemed as not noticeable or not notable enough for a Wikipedia page, and they deleted his Wikipedia page because of that, right? So,
I had a teacher in elementary school because we had like computer workshop classes since I was like the dawn of, everything's going to be online from now on generation. When we were in computer class, one of the exercises we did was our teacher had us make Wikipedia pages. And they were like, at the end of the quarter, we're going to see how many of your Wikipedia pages are still left on the website. This was an exercise in like, look at the kind of things Wikipedia allows. They don't know your children, but there are literally children writing articles for this website, and some of them will stay there. This is not a website you should trust, and this is not a website you should use for any kind of actual information.
Hey, give it up for your bass teacher.
Yeah, based. They were actually from the UK as well. Kind of crazy.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, man. This entire situation, and Rev and Strawb, I'm sorry you've had to go through all this stuff. And I'm sure it'll come out rosy on the backside of it. I know you said you've seen a lot of support on Patreon and such, and I think that's a great thing. So hopefully that's been really good for you guys. And sorry you guys had to deal with all the nonsense.
Yeah, it'll all work out. I
Yeah,
mean, we're not doom and gloom people, and it's disappointing, obviously, but we're just kind of reworking that sort of support we were getting there in other places, like you said, like Patreon. And I'm sure we're going to find other opportunities with different companies. And when we got that, obviously, we'll let everyone know.
Cool. Yeah, please.
Oh.
Yes.
Just real fast. I mean, like, if you're ever just really curious to see if you're on the wrong side of history, when you're not allowed to ask questions, if you're there, like, there it is. When you're not supposed, like, how many books, movies, and TV shows have we watched in dystopian futures where, like, that's the thing, right? And this same group of people that even made, the same authors who made and wrote that content are falling for it is hysterical to me. It's absolutely mind-blowing. The fact that they can't step out of that for even 1 second going, wait a second, I'm not allowed to question something? That seems like maybe I should maybe question something. And they don't.
Like,
That's what's amazing.
I thought growing up, like, we were taught about, like, critical thinking skills and to think for yourself. And, like, it's important to be able to get all the information and be able to come to a decision yourself. And I mean, I definitely had professors in college that were biased and would tell us exactly how they thought. But I also had some great professors that were like, listen, I'm not going to tell you what I think, because I took some history courses, and they're like, I'm not going to tell you exactly what I think about this or exactly how I feel about this. I'm going to give you all the information, and I'm going to let you come up with your own informed decision. And, like, that's how it should be. We shouldn't be, you know, reprimanding people for just asking questions and calling it like a dog whistle. Like, what are people even saying? What does that even?
Yeah,
I mean,
what
you're
did question
absolutely
everything
right.
become like a alt-right principle or something?
Right.
Well, it's because for communism to take root, you need to have an overarching consensus. And so you need to basically ruin the appearances of anyone that disagrees with the accepted position. And so that's why going into schools and, like, the long march through the institutions is the first step in transforming things into a communist ideal. That you stop teaching critical thinking, you stop teaching people to think for themselves, you teach them that individuality is a problem. You have to have a collectivist mindset. You have to think about people farther away from you rather than your inner circle. And if you care about, like, your friends and your families first and foremost, that's a fascist ideal. I was actually watching a movie the other night. It was supposed to be like a horror movie about cults, but they put in some really interesting things where, like, they were in a classroom. It was like a girl who's in high school, but she was taking like a college level course. And the professor was talking about how individualism and being, like, isolated is a sign of fascism, right? Not adhering to a collective mindset is fascist. And I was like, it's really interesting that they're trying to redefine that word in a way that it makes it look like people who think for themselves and who have individualistic personalities are a fascist flag. Because if you look at, like, the Nazis, they were incredibly collectivist. Like, they socialist is in their name, right? And they had that adherence to a collective group. So it's funny to see that in a movie. And in addition to that, the girl that I was just talking about, she's an American who went to Germany, and she met another American in one of her classes. And the chick was like, oh, it's nice to speak with somebody who's, you know, from the home country. And she's like, oh, yeah, I am American. And the first chick was like, it's okay, I'm American, but I'm not a fascist. I was like, that's weird. That's weird.
It's, yeah, and going through the arts, I mean, that goes back to what we've always said here on Side Scrollers, and Phoenix is a big proponent as well, of just, like, you have to create alternatives. You got to create alternatives, and that's the way to go. So,
I mean, this is what I wanted to do with, like, VTuber conventions, right? I want to spend money on conventions. I want to do stuff at conventions, and I don't want to bring politics there. But the conventions want to play politics, and if you don't play by the politics that are accepted by them, you're not allowed.
well, I saw a thing yesterday talking about the Dean Cain story, and just how, like, hey, there should be an alternative. And this is something that we have talked about at length here at Side Scrollers, is creating an alternative convention, whether it's in VTuber convention, whether it's a physical convention, putting together some sort of event and helping change culture that way as well. So, do you have common sense? You do? Oh, good. Well, you should probably watch this video here then.